Other questions? Sir?
How come we don't take these hot button issues like offshore drilling and abortion, those kind of things, and put them on a referendum on our ballots? California does it all the time.
Yeah, out west, initiative and referendum is more common, more popular. And I will tell you, I used to oppose initiative and referendum. I had this notion, and we are, a Republican form of government, which means you elect people to do a job. They go do it how they think best, come back and defend their positions. And having been in the sausage factory now for 7 years and 3 terms in the Senate, I think we need the check, as in a checks and balance, of an initiative and referendum option. But you got to get it through the General Assembly, where that's who you're checking and balancing. And that is an exceptionally difficult concept. If somebody doesn't run for governor on it, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the reasons Kane has been an unsuccessful governor is because he really didn't run on anything. And that's what he accomplished. Think back to George Allen's race in 1993. Abolition of parole, reform of welfare, juvenile justice reform, none of which would naturally be popular with Democrats. Now, if you remember 1994, when George arrived in the governor's mansion, the Democrats still controlled the House and the Senate, both, and he got all 3. He got all 3 because he came into office with a mandate. He'd run on it, he'd defended it, he'd educated Virginia voters about why it was important, and they weren't going to get in the way. There are only so many things you can run on in a given year. Bob just launched his first ad, of this swath of the season on energy. Offshore drilling was a big part of it. It's a difference between me and my opponent. And it goes beyond just being able to have oil or natural gas offshore. We have a huge maritime shipbuilding industry in Southeast Virginia. That industry is slower right now. They're flat. And who knows what they'll be seeing from on the defense side.
How does the state?
I'll come back to you. But if we are first offshore, and we're in a position to be if we stay aggressive, that industry will be the foundation for the whole eastern seaboard, building rigs, servicing rigs, all up and down the East Coast. That's tens of thousands of good paying jobs. It is very capital intensive. It takes a lot of capital to get that industry started. We already have it. And all a rig is a skeletal ship turned up. Same industrial base to build it. So yes, it's important for us to take part in making America energy independent. It is a national security issue. I mean, it goes beyond just the economy. But it's also an economic development opportunity of the kind we should be looking for in Virginia. Don't bribe some company to come here. We take advantages we already have in the economic environment, and we compete with the states up and down the eastern seaboard, and we beat them. And we can do that. Now, you had another question.
Well, how do we derive income from some oil drilling 50 miles off our shores?
2 ways.
How come the government doesn't put the glom on it?
Well, 2 ways. One, the state gets royalties from natural resources we pull out of, and these are public lands. They're not. It's not, my backyard. It's the state owns out to 200 miles economic rights. Now the feds are the ones who put the clamp on it. The other way is those jobs I talked to you about. I mean, part of the reason states compete to get companies to locate there is simply, income taxes and the economic activity they generate, buying things locally, doing that kind of thing. So there's 2 ways. Those are 2. If you live in Alaska, my brother-in-law lives in Alaska. He runs an engineering company up there. They pay you to live there. And they do it with natural resource royalties. It's really quite an extraordinary concept.
Now, what might
Yes, ma'am.
And it's horrible to the factories all our country's industries, foreign countries, they've actually taken hold here in the United States. And I'm sorry about that because we don't have to depend on anybody, really.
Well,
And
true.
even with that, with the oil, the drilling, we have plenty of it within the country, around our shore, and what have we done to it? We
Nothing.
don't even have an American oil company. We had Amoco first, now it's British Petroleum.
The greater concern on my part is that 50 miles off Florida, the Chinese are drilling off Cuba. And we're not.
That's right.
And we're not. And, you know, that, we're sitting by, we're sitting idly by. The Canadians are drilling offshore. Yeah, I got news for you. Gas travels. When they drill up there,
We're
you know,
paying
not to,
Brazil.
that's right.
Paying Brazil to do
Yeah,
it.
that's right. Not to say it'll all run from one place to the other, but the concept still applies.
Well, I
So,
still
that's why it's also important to go first.
We have the younger generation coming out here, they're all having all these college degrees and everything, but they don't digest their or anything. They just memorize so that they can get the
Right.
degree, and they have no common sense.
I agree with you. I just had to say that I have a big problem with my soil map. I just had to throw that out.
Well, and you know, that's part of the educational task, and I don't mean for schools, I mean for us. What was Winston Churchill's famous quote? If you're not a liberal at 20, you have no heart, and if you're not a conservative at 40, you have no brain. And, you know, it's feel good over thinking through. Who was I talking to yesterday? I talked to a couple whose son is in his last year at George Mason in their economics department. George Mason University has a spectacular economics department. Walter Williams is there, he's probably the name most famous up there. And the joke we were making was, you know, the last thing that any liberal ever learns is Austrian economics, which is actual economics. It's the kind that works. You know, I don't think it's a coincidence that the year our country was founded was the same year Adam Smith articulated free market economics. I stopped believing in coincidences a while ago. You know, and our founding fathers didn't believe in them. You read George Washington, Providence, Providence, Providence. You know, they knew where the gifts of God were handed to this country. They knew, and it isn't enough to sit back, they knew that, that we were special, that we were exceptional. You know, and today we don't even have a president who thinks that we're anything special.
That's right.
You know, wasn't proud of this country until he won the office of president, you know, according to his wife.
Actually, you know, when I listen to him, I always say to myself, well, what did he say? He just said a lot of words, but no meaning behind it.
Well, and he wants you to project what you want to hear on it, just like your
Right.
campaign. You know, that's why governing, I told you, sales, marketing, communication, governing is something else. And to be a lawyer, there's the fine print. You got to actually do it. Campaigns don't get you there. And they're in sort of permanent campaign mode. They're attacking all of us who oppose their healthcare nonsense. That's a campaign tactic. It's not a governing tactic. And fortunately, again, you know, back to our blue dogs, that's why they're nervous. That's why they're nervous. I don't even think a lot of them can articulate where they are in the process. But they're worried. And they ought to be worried. Socialism doesn't fit well with our founding principles.
That's right.
And that's the direction we're going. Yes, sir.